As modern and political social issues have energized many people to become more informed, more engaged about what kind of society they want to live in, it's also allowed many to engage in selective outrage. All too common, you'll witness someone expressing strong emotions about the actions, behaviors, ideas associated with one group while downplaying, excusing, and ignoring those associated with another group. Now, we're all human and susceptible to looking at things from a narrow point of view, especially when our emotions are involved. But we also have the ability to question our own beliefs by looking at information and sources that would challenge our assumptions, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable or proves we were just dead wrong. But it's clear the lead isn't interested in any of that and would rather make content that puts him in the same company as Stevie Knight, Candace Owens, and the Hodge twins, with a focus on black and brown suspects and Democratic political figures. Look, the lead can focus on whatever stories or events he wants to for his channel. If a story is true and can be tied into greater conversations about legal policies, social expectations, and morals, then so be it. Though when you make content that seems to focus solely on the bad actors of a certain group, people are going to wonder why they don't mention those of another group when the information is just as readily available and the crimes or activities are more extreme and disturbing. Since the lead is so passionate and informed about immigration and the ways in which that system can be abused, why not discuss the unlawful arrest and deportations of people like Andre Hernandez Romero? That was the gay hairdresser with tattoos who was wrongfully associated with the street gang Trendy Aragua. Or Salvadorian Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a construction worker who was wrongfully tied to MS-13, but was in fact fleeing the extortion and threats on his life made by MS-13 in his native country of El Salvador. He was never even charged or convicted of a crime in his native country or the US. Yet he was still deported twice, only to be returned to the US after one was deemed an administrative error, and a federal judge later ruled against the Trump administration. And that's to say nothing of the haphazard way ICE has been deployed to openly harass and detain people simply based on their appearance, or the many businesses and industries that take advantage of undocumented immigrants, keeping costs low for American consumers while also saving themselves some money. Or hey, since you're so concerned about Democratic leaders and politicians acting out of pocket, what about the numerous MAGA politicians like former Minnesota State Senator Justin Eichhorn, who resigned after he was caught trying to solicit a 17-year-old girl for prostitution? By the way, this is the guy who coined the term Trump derangement syndrome and pushed the bill to have it listed as a mental illness. Or what about Matt Gaetz, the MAGA Republican who was Trump's first pick for U.S. Attorney General at the Department of Justice? He had to withdraw his nomination after an investigation showed he also had a habit of seeking underage girls for prostitution and organizing drug filled sexual encounters with them. Or how about RJ May, a former member of the South Carolina House who used the screen name Joe Biden 69 and later pleaded guilty to distributing hundreds of images and videos of CP? Or maybe you could talk about Robert Morris, the Texas pastor and former spiritual advisor to Trump. While he recently pled guilty in court to decades of child abuse, the story broke in 2024 thanks to Wartburg Watch and the Texas Observer. And even Trump himself has, to put it lightly, a sketchy relationship with women and girls. And that's to say nothing of his decades long friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and whatever degenerate behavior they were engaged in. By the way, what about them Epstein files, huh? If you're worried about black and brown criminals, especially violent offenders, why not discuss all these white, mostly male perpetrators like Thomas Matthews Crooks and Ryan Routh, both would be Trump assassins? Oh, would you look at that? Neither of them are pink haired, transgender, black or brown immigrants, huh? And then there's Vance Bolter, a religious MAGA fanatic who killed a Democratic state senator in Minnesota and her husband, RIP to Melissa and Mark Hortman, only after he targeted another Democratic state senator, John Hoffman, and his wife, who both survived after multiple surgeries. Or maybe you could talk about the perpetrators of most school shootings. But I'm sure you can already guess who the usual suspects are in those situations. Hell, even Republican Matt Gowdy isn't afraid to say who it is.
And how many school shootings does it take before we're going to have a conversation about keeping firearms out? It's always a young white male, almost always. I mean, did anyone this morning think, I wonder if that was a female?
In fact, the FBI released a study by the National Institute of Justice confirming that right wing and white supremacist violence is the single largest contributor to domestic terrorism in the United States, outpacing all other sources by a mile. But following the shooting of Charlie Kirk, Trump's DOJ removed the study because it started getting traction as everyone sought to identify the political and cultural affiliations of the shooter, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. For the record, it still hasn't been confirmed what his politics were, but even if we do figure out if he leaned right or left, it wouldn't affect the trend of male right wing, white extremist violence in the US. When you start to become aware of these trends and all the incidents of corruption, violence, and all forms of degenerate behavior, you start to recognize when it's being omitted from conversations by people who pretend to care about the issue so much, especially when they portray themselves as authorities on the subject.